Hello and welcome to Two Chicks, One Show, a show where we usually recap a one currently airing show an episode a week as it airs, but instead we are going to be going back in time. We're going back to 1997 to talk about an old favorite, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm Tricia Ennis. She is Kait Calabro. We are your two chicks. This is our one show for the next few months until Outlander comes back. We're taking a little bit of a break, going back in time. We had a lot of fun doing it with the X-Files, so we're doing it again this time with Buffy. And once again, I am a longtime fan of the show, but Kait, you have never watched the show before, and that baffles me.
No, I mean, I've watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, several times, but I've never watched the show.
How is it possible that you've seen the movie more than once and never watched the show?
Because as a child, I grew up on watching movies that rock on VH1 over the weekends, and Buffy was always on, and that's where my love of Crybaby and Hairspray, not the musical Hairspray, though I do love the musical Hairspray, but the original John Waters Hairspray and all those kind of movies came from.
Interesting.
So thanks VH1.
Yeah, I didn't watch the movie until after I got into the show, and I actually bought the DVD of the movie for like $5 online and watched it with Christy Swanson and all them.
Luke Perry.
Oh, the movie is so terrible. Anyway.
Pee Wee Herman's in it. Pee Wee Herman's in it.
I forgot about that. And like, isn't Donald Sutherland her watcher? Or
I believe so. And then the creepy guy, what was he a creepy guy? Oh, he was a creepy vampire kind of guy in True Blood, was the creepy vampire in Buffy the movie.
Interesting. I haven't rewatched the movie ever. I've only seen it the one time. I think I still have a copy of it somewhere. I just haven't because I like the show so much and the movie is so different.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it's so vastly different. So having seen the movie a couple times, what did you think of the first season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
I mean, I don't think the movie and the TV show are vastly different. Like they're different, but like they're still, the movie is like more supposed to be like a rom-com, campy comedy. And like the series is supposed to be more serious, but because we are watching it in 2016, well, I'm watching it in 2016, there's a campy comedy element to it. So
so you don't find them that different?
No.
Maybe it's because I was coming off of like later Buffy seasons, which get a little more serious. And
yeah, like I feel like season 1 is pretty, like it's I didn't find it like to be like a drama.
I mean, it is, but it's more of a dramedy. I mean, Buffy's always, all of Joss Whedon shows are decently like half comedy and half drama. Okay, so for people who aren't aware, although how you could not be at this point in time and still watching the show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is about a 16-year-old girl named Buffy Summers, who is your standard blonde cheerleader, damsel in distress type, but it turns the trope on its head, turning her into a vampire slayer who is a prophesied lineage of girls, where there's only one vampire slayer, the Slayer, throughout the world, and as one dies, another one is awoken. So in the movie, Buffy becomes the Slayer for the first time, and in the TV show in the first season, we see Buffy moving to Sunnydale, California from LA with her mom, Joyce, and she discovers, like, she's trying to get away from all the vampire slaying, and she discovers that she happens to have moved to a town and a school that sits on a hellmouth, which is a nexus for evil demonic activity. And over the course of the season, she meets her watcher, Giles. She makes friends with Willow, who's sort of the nerdy Allison Hannigan character, and Xander, who is the doofy boy character. And we also meet some other characters like Cordelia and Jenny and Angel, of course. I forget about Angel because he's kind of blah to me. But until he gets his own show, I'm bored with Angel.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the first season. So I guess the big question for me to you is overall thoughts.
Well, see, this is weird for me because I told several people that, like, oh, I'm gonna start watching Buffy for the first time. They're like, oh, well, give it a chance because season 1 is rough. And I'm like watching it.
I was one of them.
Yeah, and um I'm like I'm enjoying it, and I'm like, I don't know why everyone was like warning me about this. Like I don't and it there was a couple episodes that were just ridiculous.
Yeah, the demon computer one.
The demon computer one. No, that I don't even know if that was one that was ridiculous. The one with the hyenas.
Oh, the hyena one is absolutely ridiculous.
That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
They eat the principal.
Yeah. It might have been the computer one. That the computer one. You read Felicia Day's book.
Yeah.
It reminded me of one of the stories in Felicia Day's book about when she would like talk to people online. It was like, oh my god, this is what she's talking about.
Never kill a boy on the first date is always a weird one for me. What about the puppet one?
The puppet one was weird. And the one where it wasn't weird. I thought it was kind of interesting when the demon gets scanned into the computer because they're scanning the old books.
Yeah, that's I, Robot You, Jane. That's the demon computer one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one was interesting.
That's the one where like Willow thinks she's dating a guy and it turns out to be the demon that they scanned into the computer by accident.
Yeah. That one was good. But yeah, so everyone told me that it was going to be rough, and I didn't find it rough at all. I had no problem getting through the first season, unlike when I watched the first season of X-Files, when I was just like, oh god.
Now, did you have trouble with the X-Files because it was dated or for other reasons? I can't remember. Refresh my memory.
I had trouble with X-Files, not because it was dated, because it was very sexist the first couple of seasons. Like I just didn't. I didn't like what they were doing with Scully. Sorry, at work we did the movie with the pilot. Sully, and I kept calling it Scully, and now I'm doing the opposite. And everyone's like, it's not. Yeah. So
the X-Files does definitely have a lot more, I guess, sexist undertones. Like you don't realize how much of an ass Mulder is at the beginning, and then you sort of like especially on rewatch, you're like, oh, okay, he's being kind of a dick. Whereas Buffy was specifically created to address those kinds of tropes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it addresses the damsel in distress trope by making this sort of like quintessential blonde cheerleader character into the hero of the story, which I really like. Every time I rewatch Buffy, I remember how much I like that subversion.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely. So I can see that being one of the reasons why you prefer Buffy, definitely to something like the X-Files. But I think a lot of people who have seen the whole series, like once you see the really good stuff in the middle, you sort of think back on the campy, weird stuff they were trying in the first season. Not that future episodes aren't campy and weird, but to a different degree. Like they haven't found their footing in season 1 yet. It's not that it isn't entertaining, it's just still kind of new and experimental, whereas I think in season 2 they really hit their stride. So I'm interested to see what you think of future seasons if you really actually like season 1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone can ever say like season 1 of a series was my favorite, because for the most part, especially with I think Buffy, which I later learned when I started, this was a mid-season pickup. They probably had no clue if it was going to be picked up for a second season at the time.
Yeah. Which
also reminded me of X-Files, because the series ends on a cliffhanger, and I haven't watched any of season 2 because I can't. I've discovered when we did X-Files version of the show, I can't move ahead until after we record this, because then everything starts jumbling because I'm binge watching. So I just it all gets very confusing for me. But like season 1 kind of ends on a cliffhanger for me. And I'm like, oh my, people that watch this like live must have been like really pissed off. Kind of like Game of Thrones is for me now.
Yeah, the show was a mid-season replacement in 1997, which is why the first season only has 12 episodes. And I don't know exactly like when they found out they were picked up. I know it was always like maybe it won't be. It was on WB,
which is now the
originally.
CW.
And then I can't remember which network it moved to, or did it move to WB? Because it moves networks after season 5, so you'll encounter the same problem after season 5. And like maybe they got picked up by UPN, I think, after season 5, and now they are the CW, and which I think is very funny. But yeah, so they were on WB, so I think, and it was when WB was still like really kind of new. And so I think everything was confusing and nobody knew like what you needed to get picked up and you know whether the show would take off. I know Sarah Michelle Gellar has told stories about going in for the pilot of Buffy and saying that, you know, telling people she got a pilot for this show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is based on a movie, and it was a mid-season show on WB, and people being like, oh, you'll get something that'll go next year. And then she ended up on this like ridiculously iconic show. So yeah. I don't know. I didn't watch it when it aired. I think I watched maybe a couple of episodes at some point early on, and I was pretty young, so I remember being freaked out by the show the same way I was freaked out by X-Files when I was younger. Like, it was just too weird and scary for like 7-year-old me. And then I remember tuning back in randomly in the last season and being just ridiculously confused.
Yeah.
And then dropping it immediately. And then eventually I came back to it in college because my older sister is really into it. And yeah, came back to it in college and just like sat up all night watching.
Oh, that's cute.
And, yeah.
That's what we did in college. We watched TV shows.
It is. That's how I got into X-Files, Buffy, Smallville, lots of stuff that I just sat up all night binge watching instead of doing my homework.
Yeah.
Binge watching before it was binge watching.
True.
Old school. Anyway,
yeah, I mean,
favorite episodes? Unless you had something else to say.
No, I mean, I think in terms of season 1 and introducing the characters, you're kind of introduced to the whole entire gang in the first episode, which I appreciate. Like, here's everyone. Now, like, I feel like there was the overarching, what was he called? Was he called the Master?
The Master, yeah, was the big villain of the season.
The overarching Master kind of situation. But that was it, which I appreciate. Like, it didn't overcomplicate. Like, here's Buffy, here's her 2 friends, here's the dude that helps them, and then here's like this mysterious vampire. And that's it. That's all you need. Like, I just like, it was very clean. And
the fact that they started with a vampire cult, I think works really in their favor because it was a very simple, straightforward vampire slayer, vampire villain, and then they expanded in later seasons.
I mean, I appreciate just like how I appreciated in the X-Files and in shows like this that they do like the Monster of the Week, and also like I think even now you can kind of almost, and I have not watched this show in a very long time, but like Sleepy Hollow season 1 kind of thing where it's there's the overarching vampire thing, or like, you know, in X-Files, the alien thing, and Sleepy Hollow, the apocalypse thing that's always going to be there, but then they have these little tasks that they do in episodes that I appreciate. Though, considering it's called Vampire Slayer, I think there could have been more vampires.
Well, that is a thing, that it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer was the name of the movie, and they, you know, they took that on as the name of the television show, but I think the reason why they stopped calling her a vampire slayer and started calling her the Slayer is because in order to do a TV show, you can't do nothing but vampires. So she protects the world from all supernatural forces. So she fights demons, and, you know, eventually she'll go on to fight other things, mostly just variations on demons. And I mean, vampires, they explain in the first episode, are demons. They're just demons who are like half human. So I think they did it. I think they did a really good job adapting it for TV and like making it something that they can do week to week. I don't mind that there aren't more vampires. A lot of the vampires are faceless creatures that she fights randomly, kills easily, and then let's talk about the big bad for this week, which happens to be my friend's demon robot boyfriend. You know, something like that. So I think I like the first season for really getting to the point very easily, very quickly.
Yeah.
Simply, it gives you everything you need. I love Willow immediately. Like, I identify so hard with Willow. In the very first episode, and I like that Buffy, even though she's supposed to be this like quintessential character, like this archetype you've always known, breaks that mold in so many different ways, like including being immediately nice to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, she's not a mean girl, although I do love Cordelia.
I do like Cordelia.
She's awesome. In a horrible way.
Yeah. She's a great bad person. And like when I mean like not like a bad guy, but like just an awful human being. Like she's literally awful.
Yeah, early Cordelia is like really cut and dried, like just an awful human being.
Yeah. But she kind of redeems herself later, at least in season 1, but then doesn't. Like, I mean, it's very complicated.
Like, she's not a bad person, but she's very shallow.
No. Yeah. I mean, you have to, it is high school.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's awful in high school. There was no one that was, like, perfect.
Yeah.
I don't like Xander.
You don't like Xander?
No.
Why not?
He's annoying. I feel like
he's a doofus.
He's a complete idiot. He's harmless. But it's just like, dude, she doesn't like you. Like, I'm sick of this, like, oh, I'm so in love with Buffy. Get the fuck over it. Okay? And like,
he doesn't
Willow,
like you, and Willow does.
Yeah. And like, Willow, get over Xander. You're so much better than him.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's especially after like having watched future seasons. And so there are certain things that you are aware of the show. We went over like the very few things you do know. So what Kate knows about the show is what we're allowed to talk about in the future. So one of the things I was joking about on Twitter and with you earlier was that even so early on in the show, like eventually Willow figures out that she's a lesbian. And that's not for several seasons. But even in the first season, I'm like, oh my God, Willow is so set up to be like Xander's lesbian friend. And I wish, like, if the show was on now, she would be gay.
Yeah, probably. From the beginning.
I feel like she would figure it out by season 2.
Yeah.
And if it were on now. But since it was on then, when we really didn't have that many gay people on TV, like, I think Buffy is the first either same-sex or female-female kiss on American network television. It's something along those ridiculous lines.
Yeah.
Even though it was like 2001. And yeah, so like I was just watching like the 3rd episode, which when Xander is like talking to Willow and he literally says like, you're like my guy friend who knows about girl stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, Willow, just figure out that you're gay already, because this friendship works so much better.
See,
when
like,
you're not crushing on Xander.
I don't know, because I don't know like the whole entire, like, I just know that she eventually is a lesbian. I interpreted that interaction differently. Like, he's just so completely oblivious to the fact that she's madly in love with him. Kind of situation.
Well, that's how you're meant to interpret it. And it's how I interpreted it from the beginning too. But it was,
I guess, if I rewatched it after I watched everything.
Yeah, I just feel like knowing what's to come and how well that works out for the story, I just and how much we do that now on TV, even though we don't do it nearly enough, we're still much more likely to have those characters go on that kind of journey much earlier. I feel like I'm just watching it now thinking, oh my God, this character should have been gay at least 2 seasons before she figured it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it would mean certain characters couldn't exist, but that's okay. In my book anyway. So you watched the first season. Gotta ask, what was your favorite episode?
I liked the first episode, shockingly, because, but like I said, it introduces all your main characters right there, and I appreciate that.
Pilots are usually rough, but this one was a good one.
Yeah, I thought it was a very this should have been a rough pilot. Like, I was going in being like, oh god, but I actually enjoyed the first episode.
Now, do you mean the first episode or the first? Because the first episode's technically a two-parter.
The one that's literally the first episode.
Okay, because I like the first two-parter, like the whole story taken together.
You mean like when they go into talking about the vampires coming?
Yeah, like, well, the fact that the first, because there's Welcome to the Hellmouth, and then the episode after it is a continuation of that story. So I like the complete story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a two-part. I don't like two-parters.
I know.
They annoy me.
But it did say to be continued. Remember, we were having that conversation.
I hate that. Other favorites, I liked Angel, because, like
it's a good episode.
Good vampire story. And the last episode,
Prophecy Girl?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Angel is a good episode. I mean, I'm lukewarm on Angel until he gets his own show. Then Angel is amazing. Like, Angel's a great show. Just, the character on Buffy, I just don't care most of the time. There are certain points where I do care, and we'll talk about those when we get there. But for the most part, he's broody, and he's that guy that you wanted to date in high school. So, like, teenagers love him. But he's just...
Yeah, I mean, he is...
vampiric white bread.
The typical vampire persona for...
He's the archetype.
He's the archetype for... That was the word I was looking for. For the dreamy vampire. I mean, you could see all those qualities in Bill from True Blood, which I'm going to talk about.
Edward Cullen. Although he's way better than Edward. I'll give him that.
Yeah, any vampire is better than Edward Cullen.
This is true.
Literally any vampire. Yeah. But, like, there's still those characteristics of the loner guy. He lurks in the corners. He's in love with the girl he can't have.
He has a stalky kind of relationship with her.
Yeah, like, he just pops up, and we're supposed to be like, this is normal.
He's really weirdly older than her.
He hurts someone in her family. Like, it's just like, yeah. And, like, he's weirdly older, and, like, he, like, makes those stupid comments like, I'm so much older than you think I am.
Yep.
Look older than you, but I'm hundreds of years. Even, like, you can say he's like Damien Salvatore from the Vampire. Literally every vampire story has an angel. So, I mean...
Yeah, it does. Angel is the archetype, the good vampire archetype.
Yeah, and in defense, I haven't met Spike yet. I know he's coming, and he is the quintessential bad boy vampire. You got your Eric Northman. You got that guy that killed someone in the first Twilight. I don't remember his name. The one that, like, the curly-haired girl tries to avenge his death later on, and you're just like, get over it.
Pretty sure I blocked out Twilight.
Yeah, I don't remember what his name was. He was only in the first movie. Yeah, so, like, I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room this whole entire time, which is how much...
True Blood poster behind you.
True Blood, though I love True Blood, and True Blood will always be my favorite vampire show, and will be vampire god to me forever. Clearly, a lot from Buffy was taken and put into True Blood.
Yeah, I feel like True Blood is like R-rated Buffy. Where Buffy is very PG-13.
Yeah, because, like, even, like, you can even say, like, Buffy and Sookie are similar. Like, Sookie isn't a vampire slayer, but she's kind of immune to... Fairy, but we don't find that out till later. Spoilers. And, but she's immune to a lot of the, bewitching that a vampire can do on you. So, and she falls in love with them, like all of them. And I'm assuming Buffy falls in love
All of
with
them at once.
Yeah, and Buffy falls in love with vampires too. So I mean, yeah, I mean it's every vampire thing is the same thing, but just a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, they all play on the same archetypes and, the same stories.
The longing to be loved and unable to love, and like, just, typical vampire stuff.
Typical
And I love it.
stuff.
I love vampires. So.
I don't. I really don't love vampire stories. Oh, excuse me, I'm like dying. I really have never loved vampire stories. I like them to a degree, but I tend more toward like the werewolf side of stories, which is it's not anything different necessarily.
I don't understand why vampires and werewolves always have to go together.
I don't know either.
Werewolves, we get it. We don't like each other.
I'm sure there's something to it. I'm definitely sure there's something to it, but there are exceptions to the rule for me. Like, I really like the Underworld movies. They hit me right at my teenage goth phase. And so you really got to like the trench coats and the boots. And from that,
there's just like Matrix with fangs. That's like all it does.
It's a little bit Matrix with fangs and no computers and more vampires. And lots of there's things. I really like the Underworld movies, even the ones that suck. Van Helsing, also, I really liked. I actually came to Underworld because of Van Helsing. And like things like that, I always really liked.
And the Dracula musical and Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah, the Dracula musical and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, definitely.
Yeah. My favorite.
But vampires have never like been my thing. I've never entirely gotten the allure of vampires.
Oh, I think vampires are like off topic, but I think vampires are some of the most interesting literature out there, because like vampires, being a vampire and the romance of vampires is so like 20th century tragic, because it's always like this person who did something wrong in their mortal life and wanted to be immortal, and now that they are immortal, all they want to do is have human feelings and to love.
Okay.
And isn't that what everyone wants, is just to be loved?
I guess, but I think
a vampire can't do that.
I don't know,
and that's like what the tragedy is.
I don't know if it's because I've just seen it done so many times, but like I like it when vampires are a part of another kind of story. Like when, you introduce the myth of a vampire, or like a character in the story is a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the story. Like, I don't like Twilight because I don't find vampires like tragically romantic. I think vampires are interesting. Like I like Being Human, which has a vampire in it, but it's not about vampires. Vampires are a big part of it, but then you also have werewolves and ghosts and like the politics of all of those. And I think that's really interesting. And like they had a vampire on the show Sanctuary, which I really liked. And there's a web series called Carmilla that recently ended. That's like one of the main characters, the titular character, is a vampire, but it's not about vampires. It is in a lot of ways about like I just want to be loved. And like I do find something romantic in the idea of living through history.
Yeah.
So I think if you do something interesting with the vampire narrative, then it becomes an interesting story. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it's always the same damn story. It's dude vampire, first of all.
Yeah.
Finds human girl that he is now in love with, but he can't really feel, so it's an obsessive kind of love. And it's not healthy. And it's the same story over and over and over and over again. And I'm like, find an interesting way to tell a vampire story, and I will enjoy that. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Love that shit.
Okay.
It's ridiculous, but it's interesting.
If you would ever watch True Blood, they do have historical flashbacks with Eric Northman. He's a very old vampire.
But they have historical flashbacks with Angel, and it doesn't make me like him anymore.
Yeah, but Angel's lame. Eric Northman rocks.
Angel gets less lame when you get into Angel the series, but it also helps that he has a cast of people that really fill out the character, and that interesting things happen with the character. Whereas on Buffy, it's about her, so Angel doesn't get that kind of time or development. He just is Angel, and he's blah.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm just kind of like, how did Angel get a spinoff? How did Angel get a good spinoff?
Because teenage girls love.
I guess, but I'm just like, how? Like, I don't understand how that character became a really good show. It boggles the mind. But anyway, so we've talked about some good episodes. We talked about some bad episodes. Although I have a soft spot for I, Robot You, Jane, the evil demon computer episode, partially because it's a Willow episode, but also because it introduces Jenny Calendar, who I really like.
The computer teacher.
Yes, the techno pagan.
Yeah.
I like her, and I like that she's kind of like just blasé about it. Like, oh, I was casting bones earlier, and Giles is like, wait, what?
Giles is my favorite character.
Well, Giles is awesome.
Yeah.
He's just blanket awesome.
I don't
the same
like
way
Buffy's
that like
mom.
Willow is blanket awesome.
Yeah, Buffy's mom's weird. I don't like her.
You will grow to like her. She becomes better in future seasons.
And she's like kind of a bitch.
Yeah, well, at this point, she's just sort of the barrier to Buffy.
Yeah.
She's the representation of like teenage life and how difficult it is to be a vampire slayer when you're 16 and you don't have a driver's license.
I guess. She just seems like an asshole.
Well, her daughter did burn down a gym.
Oh. Well, I mean,
and get kicked out of school.
Stuff happens. She can't be that busy at the gallery all the time. Like, she's like, acts like she's the most important person in Sunnydale. I'm like, relax, lady.
So you're really not a fan of Joyce, huh?
No.
Interesting.
No.
Interesting. Do you have any other thoughts on the series so far?
Gonna start watching season 2 tomorrow.
Sounds like a good idea. Do you want to do any predictions for the future? I know you know a little bit, but or what about hopes? How about hopes instead of predictions?
Hopes. Well, see, okay, I'm a little bit confused about what happened in the finale.
In what way?
And like, did she die and come back to life?
I mean, essentially in the same way that like your heart stops and then somebody gives you CPR and technically you were dead for like a minute.
At first I'm like, oh my God. And I know she's not because I do know enough about like future. Like, oh my God, is she a fucking vampire now? Because like he did bite her neck and she did die and then she came back.
That's not how making vampires works.
In this.
Yeah, in the very first episode, Buffy explains that they suck your blood and then you suck their blood. It's a whole sucking thing.
Oh. Okay, well, other vampire stories, that's how it happens.
Yeah, in Buffy, it's they bite you and then you have to drink their blood and then you become a vampire.
Yeah. A little hardcore.
They don't really show how it works on Buffy, but they do actually show it happening on Angel. I don't think they ever showed on Buffy. But anyway, that's how you make a vampire.
This is also my problem with vampire crap. Be fucking consistent.
But there's so many different versions of the vampire myth.
That's what I mean. It drives me nuts. Like every show or every vampire story, it's like different. Like, oh, in this vampire world, they can walk around in the sunlight if they wear a special ring that was made by a witch. And this vampire world
that actually happens in Buffy.
Well, that's what happens in Vampire Diaries. In this vampire world, they sparkle in the sunlight.
Well, they're all feeding off of different versions of the vampire myth. The original vampire myth of like where, depending on when in time or where in the world you're talking about, like there are versions of vampires who can walk around in the sunlight. It doesn't do anything to them. They're just kind of obvious because they're super pale. They don't sparkle. Sparkling is unique to Twilight. I don't get the sparkling.
I don't understand the sparkling.
I don't understand the sparkling. But like, there are versions. There are versions of the myth where like you stake them through the heart with a wooden stake, and there are versions of the myth where you stake them through the heart with a silver stake. And it's the same thing with werewolves. Like some of them need to be staked. It's all in like beheading and fire, and Buffy encapsulates as many of those as it can, but not the sparkling.
Yeah. It's just like it's hard to like keep up. Like I need like a spreadsheet. Like in this story, this is how it works, because then like you watch something else and it's like, oh wait, it's different.
Yeah, and so. I mean, and I like different takes on vampires. There's a show coming on NBC mid-season called Midnight Texas, and they have a vampire character, but he's not like a blood-sucking vampire. He feeds on energy, which I think is really interesting. So at least it's like I said, it's an interesting take on vampires. It's not the same vampire story over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So
whatever.
Anyway, so no, she is not a vampire.
Okay.
She did technically die for like a minute.
Do they address that?
Sort of, you'll see.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it affects Buffy in the beginning of season 2.
Does another Slayer rise?
You'll like the first episode shows you like how it affects Buffy. Like it messes with her head.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more stuff later. But yeah, like knowing that she died technically for a period of time explains sort of like how things happen in season 2 at the beginning anyway, and then it just goes away mostly. There's still a thing later, but yeah, so there's stuff. So anyway, so your hopes for season 2, is that the only thing you were confused about?
Because they left it like very blasé, like, oh, so I'm like, what just happened?
Well, she was given CPR and Xander saved her life because Angel has no breath. Which that's just dumb, by the way.
He should have still been, yeah. Like when their faces, like when they like vamp out. It's just like,
no,
why?
that's just how that works.
Yeah. I don't know if I can make any like hopes or predictions. I don't think I know enough. So
there's nothing like you want to see happen in season 2 that didn't happen in season 1, or any character development you'd like to see in season 2?
I know Xander's not going to be anything, which is like lame.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I know Willow becomes a witch.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, I think everyone's going to become like magical, and Xander's just going to be like the stupid putz that just like is like.
There's actually like a whole episode about that in season 3.
Yeah, like everyone that I'm friends with has all these great powers, and I
feel like you'll
Xander.
probably like the Zeppo, which is the season 3 episode where Xander basically deals with being the Neville Longbottom of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, but no, that's not even fair to Neville. Like Neville does a lot at the Battle of Hogwarts. Take that back, Tricia. That was not
Xander's
nice.
helpful. He does contribute.
But Neville is a wizard.
This is true.
Take it back.
And Xander is not a wizard. He is a doofus.
That was not nice.
Eventually, he's a doofus Neville. With a hammer.
So what?
I'm just saying. He literally has a hammer. He becomes a construction worker.
Neville becomes a professor at Hogwarts.
Well, I didn't say that's his ultimate thing. That's just what eventually happened. Like, it continues in the comics.
I cannot believe you insulted Neville Longbottom like that.
I like Xander because he's the human. Like, I like normal people.
I guess there's like always a character that we just have to pity.
Well, there's always a character who has to be the one that's actually being brave. Like, Buffy going into these situations isn't necessarily always a brave decision. Like, she does when she goes into the really scary ones that could kill her, but for the most part, like, she's literally meant to do this. So yeah. It's a different kind of, so it's different for someone like Xander and Willow to a degree early on, especially when they choose to help.
Yeah.
So they had to keep somebody normal,
I guess,
to be like us, essentially, like to be the human. Like, you don't have to be extraordinary to do extraordinary things.
I mean, I just think you're giving him a lot more credit than he deserves.
I like Xander.
You like him. I just think okay.
I mean, he's not my favorite character. I have many other favorite characters. We haven't met them yet, but yeah. But I like him. So Ha. Anyway. All right. So I've insulted Neville Longbottom. I like Xander. You think he's boring. I think Angel is boring. And you have no other hopes for season 2?
I hope we get like a more interesting vampire.
Okay.
Like I get the angel thing, but I'm just like something more exciting.
Okay.
Than Angel, and even the Master. Like you sat in a fucking cave.
He was a mustache twirler.
Some like little kid. Like
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
I put him out of my brain.
Weird little kid that like
weird little kid.
Yeah.
Demonic children, always bad.
I would like to
also
see
demonic puppets.
The puppet was weird.
I hate the puppet. And he's a character in the video game. Oh.
I hope. What's Buffy's mom's name? I don't even know.
Joyce.
I hope we get to see Joyce's gallery. It's season 2. So that's about it.
Okay, so you heard it. Basically, all Kait wants is more interesting vampires. So, will that come to pass in season 2? Do not spoil anything in the comments, but do leave your comments talking about season 1 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. What were your favorite episodes, least favorite episodes? Do you like Xander Harris? This is a big issue we need to sort out here.
Never compare him to Neville Longbottom.
What is your take on vampire fiction? Let us know in the comments here on allgeektome.net, on Twitter at allgeektomenet. That's us. You can follow us for more updates to find out when the next show is. We're going to get into season 2 next time here on Two Chicks, One Show. Until then, so long. You have to say words in order for people to see you. Say goodbye.
Bye.
There you go.